Hey, we're going to make a short video today about the three branches of government, but to help us out, I usually like to start off this way with the paper so I can use the full length. But today we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to use the horizontal portion of it, and we're going to start with some origami. We're going to take this paper and we're going to fold it up. We want to try to create lines sometimes that'll help us. Some people struggle with spatial reasoning, so sometimes if you can make lines and it'll help you place things in certain spots to where the rest of it's easier to draw. So we're going to start by doing that, and we're gonna fold this paper into a third. Okay, and it doesn't have to be perfect third, but just a rough third. Okay, that's our first one. Then we're going to come back. See how I've used about a third of that paper? Now we're going to come back and we are going to go again, but we're going to do it the halfway mark. And once again, it doesn't be perfect, but if you got paper underneath you, pay attention because you might be lining up the wrong piece of paper and have something really, really goofy looking. Okay, so there we go. And I almost got nailed by the same problem, so I had to redo it. So now we got a line right in the middle, and we got line right at the bottom. This is going to help us with what we're going to create next. And we're going to start it. Usually I label at the top of the page. This time we're going to label at the bottom of the page. And we're going to label a big old fat 3. I don't mean to shame anybody. It's just I want to make sure we do a big 3. Because I want to emphasize that term 3. Because sometimes people forget how many branches of government we have. And I guess I should be specific as to which government we're talking about. Oh, by the way, that's the shortened version for government, in case you don't remember. We're talking about the U.S. Constitution government. And so when you look at this next line, we're going to put that, and we're going to try to center that right in the middle. So right above your R, approximately. And I just listed the U.S. Constitution. And what we're going to do is we're going to use this other line to name out the 3 different branches we're talking about. So make sure you space them out so they look proper. And we're going to go probably, about 3 fingers in and about 3 fingers here. And we're going to start with the legislative branch right along this line. Don't write it too big. And then we're going to take a little space here, just about 2 fingers worth, and we're going to write maybe 2.5. Executive. I'm going to come over here and about 3 more fingers away, we're going to come over here and we're going to list the word judicial. Okay, so we've got legislative, executive, and judicial. Then underneath, we're going to put in parentheses because there's other words we use to describe these branches of government. We say legislative, we actually call it Congress. And when we talk about the executive branch, usually we're talking about the president. Unless we're in a different country, then maybe we'll call him El Presidente. But in this country, we just say president. And over here, this is where we're talking about the Supreme Court. Okay. Now, there are other parts of these branches that we're not talking about, but this is what the branches were set up in the Constitution. This was how our government was established in these 3 different groups. And everything else stems from that. And so what we're going to do is we're going to make a tree out of this because we're talking about branches of government, right? So now that we got that listed here, I want you to draw a tree that looks kind of like this. And we're going to do the same thing over here. This is a big tree. And to have a tree, you got to have roots, right? Okay. And then what we're going to do is we are going to start right about here. And we are going to start over here. And we're going to make this a big limb that goes up like this, up off the screen, and it splits actually. And that's important to know because our legislative branch has 2 parts. Okay. And over here, we're going to make the executive branch one big branch. And over here, our judicial branch is one branch. Okay, so we got that all squared away. And so we're going to start over here by labeling our tree. And it doesn't really look like a tree that well yet. I get it. Okay, if you really want to start making it look like a tree, you can put a couple little squiggles in here. Don't get too crazy with it because we're going to draw some stuff in here. And I'll put little squiggles in here because you know what? Make it look like bark. And we'll make it look really good here in a few minutes, but we'll just a few of those. Okay, so let's talk about legislative branch first, because really, that's Article 1 of the Constitution. That's the very first thing our founding fathers defined was in the first article. And there's a whole other video on what articles are and how the Constitution's broken up, and you don't have to watch that right now, but I want to make sure we know this is Article 1. And the executive branch is Article 2. That's why it's the second branch, not because it's the biggest, just because it came in order that way. And then you got Article 3, which establishes the judicial branch, specifically the Supreme Court. Now, I have to remind you that there are more than 3 articles in the Constitution. There's actually 7 of them, but we're not going to talk about all that today, okay? Let's get specific about these 3 articles and we'll kind of go from there. So let's talk about Article 1. And I've got 2 limbs over here for Article 1 because we have something called a bicameral legislature. And I'm going to write that here. Bicameral. Bi means 2. And cameral means houses. So we've got 2 houses in our government. And one is called the Senate. And the other is referred to as the House of Representatives. Okay? And each of these houses, I say houses because one's the Senate, one's the House of Representatives. They both have different responsibilities. They both make laws. I gotta get that really clear. The job of Congress is to make laws. And you can write that wherever you want. Let's write that right here. And I'm going to make this kind of stand out a little bit. In the executive branch, they're different. Their job is to enforce laws. They make the government go. And then the judicial branch, their job is to judge laws. And just because I want to make these ideas stand out, I'm going to color them in yellow. That's the first time I broke out yellow yet, or any color. We might as well get these out and get them all looking beautiful. And I'm going to go ahead and make these 3 branches all colored up too. Okay, so if at this point you want to do a little color action, it's great to do it. We're going to add a little brown here. Because let's make it look like a real tree. And you don't have to be perfect, just a little bit of color. Now when you pull this thing out of your folder, or you pull it out of your wherever you got it stored, you say, oh, it's a tree. Wait a minute, trees have branches. Oh, wait a second, we're talking about the Constitution, and it has 3 branches. Even though one of them splits off and does its own thing. And I'm going to save this part of this right here because I want to explain something else about the executive branch, because I want to make sure that everybody knows the executive branch is a little bit different in terms of its responsibilities. Because it's got one that we see and hear about a lot. The executive branch, the president, is actually what we call the commander-in-chief, which means he's in charge of all the military. Now, does that mean he can declare war whenever he feels like it? Absolutely not. But it does mean that he has certain responsibilities in making sure that the military is ready. And if a war ever does happen, he's the guy who's going to be running that military. So let's go back to these guys over here, the legislative branch. And we're going to draw some leaves and make sure they're big, because we're going to make a couple comments over here. I want to make sure that we don't make them too small. And we put 3 over here. We're going to put 3 over here. Because when we talk about these, the way these houses operate are a little bit different. For instance, if you want to join the House of Representatives, you only need to be 25 years old to get elected. And that's different because in the Senate, you've got to be 30 years old. And the House, if you want to run to be in the House, you have a 2-year term. That's different than the Senate, who actually has a 6-year term. And then, of course, there's another requirement. If you want to be in the House of Representatives, you have to be a citizen for at least 7 years. But in the Senate, you have to be a citizen for 9 years. And once again, those requirements are because they're trying to limit or manage the amount of influence another country might have on you. If you come here and you want to make laws, they want to make sure you're going to do it in a way that supports our country first and not another country that maybe you had allegiance with before. So those are requirements you have to be in those, and those are the limitations you have to join either the Senate or the House of Representatives. Now, the Commander-in-Chief's a little bit different. You got to be older yet. You got to be 35 years old. And you have to be born a citizen. So you cannot move here from a different country and run for president. If you're not born here, you don't get to have the job. And along with that, they serve 4-year terms. They only get to serve 2 terms, unlike these guys who can run as many times as they want to. Oops, just 2 terms. And then, of course, you're actually elected by an organization called the Electoral College. And that's going to be a whole different video for you to watch, because that gets really confusing. But let's give that a little color, because if we're going to have tree leaves, they got to look like tree leaves. And of course, this is not perfect. Maybe your picture is going to look a lot better than mine. If it does, good job, more power to you. The last branch we're going to talk about briefly is the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court is made up of 9 judges. And these people, when they're appointed, they serve for life. They're chosen by the president. I just put Prez because, well, that's what I did. But they have to be confirmed by the Senate. And I'm going to have a hard time writing this in here, so I'm going to draw a little picture, a little line over here, which means the president gets to pick them, but they have to be approved by the Senate. And that way, the president doesn't pick people without having somebody else's opinion before they get the job. All right. Well, there's a lot more to talk about these branches. They're responsible for the things they do, that type of thing. But this is just a real short, down and dirty on what these branches look like. And you can make this bigger on bigger pieces. You can make all kinds of more leaves and do all kinds of neat things with this. But this is just a way to get us introduced to the concept. And I hope you're able to read it because, well, my projector and my technology are pretty old school based on what's out there now. And if it's not clear enough, I apologize. But hopefully, if you can take a look at that real quick, you can fix up and mix up anything that you might have not gotten done right the first time. And that's it. Thank you.